Chapters 13, 14, and 15 of Shri Krishna, the Lord of Love, by Baba Premanand Bharati. This LibriVox recording is in the public domain. Chapter 13. Again, the cowherds, including Krishna, went with their cows to give them drink, and also to quench their own great thirst. Sporting on the banks of the lake, they suddenly saw a monster crane coming towards them with great flapping wings. Affrighted, they turned, all but Krishna, to flee, but ere a moment had passed, the huge bird had devoured Krishna. But only an instant he was lost to sight, for before the boys knew what calamity had come upon them, the bird in great haste gave up the prey that brought to his throat the sensation of burning, for when Krishna entered his body, it was as if liquid fire poured all through him. Then seeing Krishna again in the midst of the boys, lo, with the beak and the talon, he again made for him, but Krishna seized the beak with his hands and ripped the great body in halves, even as women tear in half fine linen, which requires no effort, and the demon was again allayed. Again it happened that the boys with Krishna sought the forests in sport to engage. While bounding in frolicsome play, they beheld at a distance a huge serpent stretched forth in its length like a range of hills. Wide open its mouth was, and close to the path of the boys it lay. In an instant within it they walked, all but Krishna, who contemplated the monster with eyes full of power. Then straight into its jaws he too went. But now the hideous serpent writhed in pain, and like monstrous bellows its great sides heaved, for Krishna had expanded within its throat till it expired, shaking all the earth in its throes of death. And the boys laughed in glee as out of the great jaws of the serpent they walked. But Krishna lifted his eyes to the sky, and illumined all the heavens became, for the dispenser of all light destroyed the evil that sought to reign in that land where love dwelt, and with mighty strength he felled the feeble hands of evil to the ground. For where Krishna was, illumination was, and darkness could not draw life. The deadly shade of sin sought to blight and blast the garden, where truth bloomed fair and tall, but so ripe with love it was that it could not on that soil take root to create its evil, nor yet prevent the good. For the knower of all that is knowable saw with his all-seeing eye the spirit of every stress and storm, and laid it low ere its brewing began. And thus his blessing gave increase to plenty, and virtue it added unto good, and unto them that loved in that realm of love stones were as bread, and wormwood as sweetness was. Evil is sin, and hateful to love, and Krishna had the longing and the power he wielded to save his world from the pestilent blast of the sin that in boldness sought to destroy it. As love he came, the maker of man and of the universe, to rescue man, his creation, from the rottenness of his own doings. Chapter 14. And Brahma, the creator, witnessed the miracles that Krishna, the child and the youth, was performing hourly at his plays and gambols, and marveled if he, the child, might be that was come to succor Mother Earth in her trial. Surely sometime, somewhere, in some place, it was said that the all-wise being that was over all as a little child would be born among men to save them from their blinded selves and turn them Godward, looking towards home. This he knew had been said. Was this child the one that the eternity was, he the rememberer of all beings and things? He would know it in proving the power of his yoga, for if this were the absolute Lord, he alone would be the Lord of the lords of all yogis. Krishna, sitting with his boys in the forest, discovered that the herds had disappeared from their sight. On seeing the alarm on the face of his friends, Krishna exclaimed, I myself shall fetch back the cows, so be not anxious, eat to your fill of the fruit you are munching. He searched and called, but the cows were as vanished, and returning again to his playmates, he found they too were missing. Then a smile, as the sun doth break through the clouds, shone on his face, and with yoga maya he divided himself into cowboys and cows, and even into calves, and he himself leading them who were of him the all, he returned with the cows and the boys to the village. But mark, when the boys, that were parts of Krishna, love manifest, ran to the arms of their mothers, a thrill that was ecstasy played through their beings, and never did mothers love so their sons as the mothers who held to their hearts the boys whom by his power he had made from himself. And so it was with the cows and the calves. Those who milked the cows were wild with joy to stroke their hides and feed them, and milk of those cows as nectar was. And Krishna stood with the cowboys among the cows, and smiled in his wisdom at them all. Now Brahma knew that the boy was the Lord, who as child to man had come, for by his yoga power he had taken the cows and calves and boys to a cavern, and there put them to sleep. But Krishna, to prove himself the greatest in power, had divided himself into boys, cows, and calves, and for 1 year had been thus. When Brahma saw this, from trance sleep he awoke the sleepers, and bowing low to the feet of Krishna, salutation made, and thus did burst forth: O Lord of all love, O being supreme, O source of all life and maker of all, oft in the eyes of my yoga glimpses of thee have I caught, and thy loveliness and majesty transcend all beauty. What is the merit of the earth that thou shouldst bless it with thy beautiful feet? Have looked upon the earth and have seen thy love in all things, but I perceived not that thou in thy mercy wouldst live among men even as man. Through thy coming each heart that a hovel in poorness was into a palace of riches has grown. Through thy coming all flesh its grossness has lost, since to the eyes of man thou seemingly walkest in the flesh. Thou who the centre of thy radiance art, yet walkest within that radiance, what is the mystery of thy great self? Thou who teachest the bird to cleave the sky, and hath made me the creator of earth, and continuest the motion thereof. Thou who the concrete art, and yet the abstraction thereof dost prove. Thou mystery of all mysteries, the secret, the indistinct, and yet the sublimely simple parent of the universe. Thou who art the whole, and yet the parts, the immensity, and yet the mote of things. A poor groveler am I at thy feet in the dust. Why hast thou blessed me to know thee thus? Thou art the ocean of existence, and saints and gods and men and all thy creatures are but the uncounted waves that play and stretch and heave on thy breast. From thy abode hast thou come of thine own sweet will, to give unto all the power of thy love. Dull were my eyes to behold not in thee the Lord, who stamped on all things the name of his love, and with the name its potency too. O thou, all beauty and power and sweetness and strength, refuse me not the bliss to dwell in homage at thy feet. Thou who art the cause of all things, who stirrest the root and stem of all life into love, who art the indestructible truth of things, thee I meditate and worship for ever. Chapter 15. In the glad land of Vrindavan, the land where love reigned supreme because of the presence of him who was love personified, who was love incarnate, and who as a boy did bless the world with his being. In that land, mid childish sport and gladsome frolic, Krishna grew into beauty of youth. Day by day the land became more beautiful in the joyous springtime, and one day his brother Rama, he whose growing was beautiful, and who like Krishna was marveled at for the wonder of his doings, said unto Krishna, Does not the smell of the forest invite thee, O brother? Even here the air is heavy with ripeness of the fruit that the sweet spring air hath brought us. Shall we not go and pluck from the trees and eat our fill of the fruits that are dropping on the ground in luxuriousness, but to become rotten? Gladly would we go, said the other boys, but we fear Dhanuka of the demon family, who dwelleth close thereby. It is said that he hath taken the form of an ass, and though he seemeth harmless, yet hath he much power for evil, which he wieldeth mightily when he hath a chance to do so. So though we would gladly partake of the fallen fruit, yet do we fear him. But what sayest thou, Krishna? Thou canst, if thou wilt, destroy all who are filled with hate and evil. Wilt thou and Rama use your strength to protect us? Let us away, quoth Krishna, and in a few moments, heated and full of laughter, the boys were shaking the trees for the golden-sided fruit, which seemed to smile upon them in its beauty of ripeness. But at the first sound of happiness that reached the ears of the ass, he rushed in the midst of the youngsters and sought to destroy them, making Rama and Krishna the special objects upon which to vent his hatred and strength. For a time both boys dodged hither and thither, trying to turn aside the anger of the ass, but seeing that it would not be appeased, Rama caught him by the hind legs, and after swinging him over the heads of the boys a few times, he dashed his head against the tree and proceeded to aid the boys in picking the fruit. The braying of the ass had brought forth the kith and kin of the asura who dwelt in the forest with him, but they too in a brief struggle were killed by Rama and Krishna. End of chapter 15.